So I've read hundreds of books on different topics from psychology to philosophy to business to finance. And in this video, I'm going to share 5 books that I believe every single man should read. That's not your traditional Think and Grow Rich or 48 Laws of Power, although I do still think those do have value. So what I'm going to do for each of these books is give you guys 3 points on each book, takeaways, quotes, things that I just learned so you guys can get a glimpse into the value that these books bring. But I also still recommend that you guys actually go and read all of these yourself. I have read every single one of this book at least twice. So very first book, The Richest Man in Babylon. As you guys can see, this is a very easy read, less than 100 pages. And the whole main concept of it is just money, keeping your money, and multiplying your money. So the very first thing that I took away, or one of the biggest things, is advice is freely given. Everyone wants to give advice, even if they don't actually have real knowledge or are at the level to give advice. So less intelligent people will take advice from anyone. Smart people are going to take advice from who have specific knowledge and experience in that area and are actually at the level that you're trying to get to. So if I'm trying to become, say, a millionaire worth 10 million, I'm not going to take advice from somebody who doesn't have money, right? Less intelligent people might do that. So don't just take any advice at face value and say, oh, I'm going to utilize that. Kind of vet who that person is, where you're getting that advice from, because it may not actually be true and it might actually lead you down the wrong path. Now, the second thing, which is a lesson that I've actually learned the hard way, is don't invest in things that you are not familiar with. So there's a really good quote in the book. I don't know the exact quote, but basically, if you have money and you try to invest in things that you don't know about, you're going to get the experience, but you're no longer going to have your money. So the smartest people, yes, they could diversify, but most of their wealth is all going to come from one area and one area that they know very well. So for me personally, all the lessons that I've learned really from finance have and trying to invest really in things that I don't really know a lot about. I hear somebody kind of getting back to that first point, oh, you should invest in this. I don't really know a lot about that. And then I try to go dabble and invest in it, and I learn a lesson. Or I try to go into a different new business, right, that I don't really know about, invest money into that, lose the money, right? So stick into the areas that you know a lot about, or if you want to go into another one, seek people out, get the right advice, get experience, start to gain knowledge, then invest that money. The third thing is true wealth is going to take time, and money that is made quickly is oftentimes going to leave quickly because you do not have the time to build the lessons, to keep that money, and to multiply that money. So yes, it may take you 10, 20, 30 years to build true wealth, but that's just the way the game goes. You want to make sure you're taking the right steps over time that lead you in the right direction. Don't try to make a ton of money super quick. Obviously, there's small ways that you can do this. It takes super intelligent people, really obviously high leverage in certain areas, but again, that's not necessarily the general rule. It's going to take time. Be okay with that. A lot of people lose their money and never build wealth because they're going for the fast wealth. So the second book, which I've rarely ever heard anyone recommend, one of the best books I ever read, is 38 Letters of John D. Rockefeller. As you guys can see, also not a super long book. So this is the richest person to ever live adjusted for inflation. And these are 38 personal letters that he wrote to his son on business, on mindset, on wealth. So he was one of the poorest people in his town, in this area, and he grew up to become one of the richest person, and he believed and actually said from a young age that he wanted to become the richest person. So that just gives you an idea as to his mindset. So you really get a good idea of who this person is and how he thought, and you can kind of adopt some of those things. So very first lesson that I learned is successfully implementing one good idea is worth more than 1,000 good ideas that you just think about and plan. And there's a really good quote, and I'll read it here. He says, I haven't heard anyone being praised for not disturbing others, not acting, or having to wait for someone else to order things. So really, waiting for the perfect time is never going to be a recipe for success. So you can spend all day planning, thinking of good ideas, but just once you have a good idea, once you know, okay, this is the business I want to go in, this is the investment that I want to make, implement it. Don't sit here and wait for the perfect time and wait for things to be perfect, because that time will never come. And we never ever hear about somebody who started something and it was a perfect time and everything worked out. That's just not the way that life works. So second thing that I learned, great ideas and plans are going to come easier or just as easy as average plans. So you selling, say, $1,000 product is probably going to be or take just as much effort as selling $1 million product. So really the difference between a lot of successful people and average people is just their ability to think bigger and have grander plans. Oftentimes it's going to take the same amount of time planning. It's going to take the same amount of time executing. It's just going to take a higher leverage, really thought process in action, but it's really going to take the same amount of effort. So that's a big thing that he talks about multiple times, is just really your ability to think big is going to lead to a lot of your outcomes, and obviously clearly it did. The third thing, which I think is really the most fascinating part, is money is energy. So this is the way that he thought about it, where if you're storing energy in a bank account, it's idle. That money cannot spread, it cannot produce more money. And then the other people who never really become wealthy are people who spend money on things that don't produce any more money. So what you want to do with your money is invest, right? You have a ball of energy, you want to put that somewhere where it can create more energy, it can bring more money back to you. So The richest people are always doing this. They look at money as energy. I don't want just this money sitting idly in a bank account. That does nothing for me. They're going to invest it in other ways so they can get more money back from that. So the richest people are not people who just lavishly spend money and delete that energy, or they're not the people who just sit and hoard money and just let it sit in a bank account, because again, that energy is not able to spread. So third book is, this is one of the best books that I've ever read. If you are a man, I 100% believe you should be reading this book, El Discreto, The Complete Man. This was written in 1646 by a Spaniard philosopher, written in a way that I can't even really describe to you. Covers everything in terms of decision making, patience, the way that you should operate in your daily life, values that you should have. So very first thing that I learned from this book and still think of to this day, and one of the best quotes from it, is very simple, is time and I against all. So really just covering the idea of patience. So, and another quote that he says within this book is, he who falls in love with patience and entrusts himself to time allies himself with victory, guidance, providence, reasoning, maturity, waiting. They all guarantee success, but they all require time. So if you can be patient, if you can continue to put in work, if you can trust that, hey, I'm doing this and I'm going to have time on my side, you'll always be successful. So that was one of the very first takeaways, and a very powerful one. And again, the way that this thing is written, the way that it helps you understand these certain concepts is crazy. So the second thing, which is very powerful, and I'll read a caption here to kind of explain. He talks about in multiple different chapters of the book, is who you surround yourself with is obviously very important. And one of the people you need to be aware of and be careful surrounding yourself with is the person he's going to describe in this passage. So it says, the more some know of others, the less they know about themselves. The fool knows more about another's house than about his own. So these are people that are always gossiping. He talks a lot about matters that should mean nothing to him and nothing about the matters that should mean everything. So these are people that are talking about gossip. These are people that are talking about the football game, talking about this, talking about things that mean nothing to them, but the things that actually mean and have substance, they talk very little about. And then it says, is there an occupation worse than leisure? Yes, useless curiosity. Beware of men who speak of things without substance. So you need to be careful of these people. They're always gossiping, they're always talking, but they provide no real substance, knowledge, or anything practical. Now, another quote along the same lines of, who you surround yourself with. For just us, the greatest strategy for cards is knowing which one to keep and which one to discard. The greatest rule for living is to know which people to keep around you and which ones to discard. And lastly, the third point, which I take very personally because this is something I try to live to all the time, the best that I can, is the complete man aspires to be great rather than to appear to be so. He is content with who he is and what he has, and thus has no internal struggle in him to be liked for anything other than reality. So the complete man, a great man, is content in and of himself and not trying to appear to be somebody else. So those are also people you need to be aware of. Okay, this person's always trying to portray an image. He's not really this way. Doesn't really have money. He doesn't, normally act this way, but he's always trying to portray himself to be this certain way. Obviously, Marcus Aurelius also talks about this. Don't try to portray yourself to be a great man, just be one. So very, very practical book. Obviously, lots of things you can take away. I highly recommend you guys go read it. Now, fourth book is The Psychology of Money. I've also read this one twice. Kind of a more mainstream book, but again, I highly recommend you guys read it. Three of the things that I took away. Number one is you only have to be right once. So in terms of investing, a lot of people are just, S&P 500, that's great and whatever. But if you guys want to be a more high-level investor, actually make real money, you need to be a little bit different than that, obviously. And one of the concepts is you just need to be right once. If you can have a lot of specific knowledge in one specific area, if you can see one specific trend before other people, and you can even just save $100,000, and you can put 20, 20, 20 in all these different buckets, maybe 4 of them don't work out, but one of them goes from 20,000, hits 1,000x, right? You only need to be right once to really set yourself up. You need to A, take enough chances, B, stay in the game long enough, which is another thing that it talks about, is part of the game is staying in the game and not losing your money. So you only need to be right once, but it's going to take multiple swings at bat. It's going to staying in the game and also taking highly calculated, really good risk-adjusted bets that are going to potentially lead to obviously high outcomes. So that is a major takeaway. The second thing is tails are going to drive everything. So kind of back to that same point, right? You can invest in the right thing. Say you were an early investor in Bitcoin and you rode it from 2012 to 2015. That's great. But all the money was made if you were able to hold it for another 10 years from 2015 to 2025, or really even from 2020 to 2025. So that is going to be the tail event of that. And it's really kind of the concept of compound interest, where all of that money is really going to be made in the long term as all of that stuff can really compound. So great things are going to take time, and all the great results are going to come from tail events. Same thing with success, right? Building in a business. You're going to make most of your money in, say, year 8, 9, 10 of the business, where in year 1 through 8, you may make the same amount of money as you made in year 8 alone. So obviously all great things are going to come from tail events. You need to stick with something long enough and be willing to hold through volatility or through ups and downs. And the third thing is everyone's going to try to tell you what to invest in. you need to know your time horizons, you need to know your specific knowledge, and stick to what you know, stick to your area. Don't be led in a million different directions. People on TV are going to tell you to invest in this. People on social media are going to tell you to do this, do that, right? You're going to be pulled in a million different directions. If you can just simply know your path, this is my time horizon. I want to be rich in 40 years, or I want to maintain my wealth over 40 years. Okay, great. I'm not trying to get rich tomorrow. I'm not trying to get rich in a week. This is my time horizon. I'm going to stick to that. And I'm going to stick to what I know, and I'm going to believe in that over the long term. Now, book number 5, which is one that I read a while ago, and this has a ton of wisdom. Naval does a great job, or at least the guy writing for Naval, which is some of these are his tweets and little short patches and stuff like that. He takes really complex subjects and things and breaks them down into a very simple way where some of them are even just a sentence and they're very powerful in and of itself. So this book is about health, wealth, and happiness, really making money, keeping money, decision making, all of that kind of stuff. So first thing that I learned is making money is a skill. I think a lot of people just think making money is luck. Oh, some people have it, some people don't. It's simply a skill. And when you can learn that skill will be valuable forever, but then you'll also be able to make money, not essentially on command, but kind of close to that, right? So all you need to know is what are the skills and knowledge that I need around money, and how can I build that so I can make money myself? It's not luck. It's not something that people just have. Now, second thing is value freedom in your ability to use money to buy freedom. Don't use money to make your life more difficult, which is what I see a lot of other people do, simply because they want to appear a certain way, like we were talking about in the book before, or 2 books before, where they believe that just buying things are going to make them happy. Now, obviously, if you're rich and you have a ton of money, you're just inherently going to buy things. Absolutely. But you don't want to buy things in a way that's just going to add more headache. Just because you make a bunch of money doesn't mean you need to go and buy stupid stuff that's going to break, that's going to need repairs. Do that when you can also pay somebody to take care of certain things. Use money to create more freedom. How can you do that? Hiring a cleaner, hiring a maid, hiring a chef, hiring a driver. Use money to give yourself more freedom to actually value the things that you want. Maybe you want more time just so you can spend more time with your family. Maybe you want more time so you can just go and do certain things that you're passionate about, art, jujitsu, whatever it may be, right? Use money to make your life more beneficial, not just give you more headaches, which I feel like a lot of people do for whatever reason. Now, third thing is decision making. Now, if you can't decide, the answer is always no. So if you have a choice to make and you're just not sure, like yes or no, the answer is probably no. And if you say yes to certain things, you're saying no to other potential things. You want to make sure the things that you do say yes to are, in quotes, a hell yes, right? The things that I really want to do this and I'm passionate about it, not just like, I guess I'll do it, right? Every no is a potential yes down the road that can be even better or more beneficial for you. And then another point on top of that is if you have 2 choices and you're not sure which one to make, the best one is probably the one that's more difficult in the short term and is going to be more beneficial in the long term. So take those 2 things into consideration when you're trying to make a certain decision. They'll be very valuable. So again, these are 5 things or 5 books, and then obviously a couple things from each of these books. Highly recommend you guys read each of these. I'll drop them all in the description. If you guys like this and you want a part 2, we'll absolutely love to do that. So see you guys.